Thank you so very much. I'm humbled and overwhelmingly again grateful for this honor. I wanted to share that as I was sitting there listening to the stories, watching the video, I was so deeply moved. I want to thank Christopher, obviously, for your leadership. As you stated before, that the services you provide are not just about treating symptoms, but restoring hope in so many who have many and deep concerns. I want to congratulate Holiday of Hope. I want to thank and congratulate, obviously, Melissa for your service and all of your work and your family. I want to thank all of the board members. Ruthie, if I may say, your story touched me, and I think it touched everyone else. As I was looking around, there wasn't a dry eye at our table. I hope I get this right, Adriana? Andrea, as you spoke about your aunt, she was a giant, not just in our city, but in all of our communities. Her spirit, her resilient efforts to ensure that mental health remains at the forefront of the concerns of elected officials of all in our community. Her impact, the benefit of her work will continue to bless our communities for generations to come. I was considering the impact of the service of the mental health Center of Passaic and the hard work that all of you provide. I worked 15 years for St. Mary's Hospital. That was my first interaction with mental health professionally with the St. Teresa's unit and the crisis unit. I worked there alongside my friend and fellow elected official, Danny Rodriguez, who's here from the Passaic Board of Education. And oftentimes, we would be called upon to respond to what we refer to as code 10s or code silvers they later became when an individual had an episode or there was an issue in the psych ward, as we referred to it, we had to respond. And I remember that some of the counselors would tell me at this very young age, you seem to have a good rapport with them. I would talk and I would take time. And that time in my 20s, I considered it such a compliment. Now, as I look back on it, and I remember that they referred to the patients as them, as if it was somehow different than us. And when I consider it today, I think that was the difference. I never viewed the patients as them. I considered it as us all together, because everyone faces challenges and difficulties. We just don't always reveal it. We're not always transparent about it. I was sharing earlier as I was speaking to Dom in an interview that there was a quote by Robin Williams that stated that no one fakes having depression, they fake being okay. That was deep, because I think at some point in all of our lives, we face challenges, adversities, difficulties, and we deal with anxiety, depression, and concern, but we have support around us. Another quote by Robin Williams that he shared was he used to think that the worst thing in life was to be alone, but it wasn't, that the worst thing in life is to have people around you that make you feel like you're all alone. I want to thank the Mental Health Center of Passaic for making sure that no one feels alone, that they feel supported and lifted up, and they have individuals that genuinely care and understand. I want to thank each and every one of you for your efforts, your contributions, and your commitment to make a difference. The mental health walk of Passaic with our youth, if you can imagine, there are those that struggle with mental illness and the stigma of it, and why I was so proud to push forward, making sure that the city was stigma-free is because for the young who seem invincible, even greater for them, no one wants to share their challenges. No one wants to go out and receive help. So coming together and making sure that everyone knows that there is assistance, it really does make all of the difference. Jane, your heart and your commitment for service continues to inspire me every single day. I wanted to say that personally, you and Simon and all of your efforts as a family to make sure that Passaic is always well represented means the world. And just a quick joke, when I heard the name Rodney, the bodybuilder, was that your name, Rodney? The world champion bodybuilder. Remarkable and amazing accomplishment. When I heard bodybuilder, I think we all looked at the table for Steve Goldberg. We thought they were talking about you. But some of you get that. A quick story. When I worked at St. Mary's Hospital, I got promoted to the position of public health and patient liaison. And a gentleman reached out and said that he wanted to speak to the hospital. His name was Ron Coleman. Now, Ron Coleman is the name of a world-famous bodybuilder. Huge. I mean, this guy is remarkable. He's a superstar. You've heard of him, right, Ronnie? Oh, I got so excited. I thought I was bringing a celebrity to St. Mary's Hospital. I started sharing his picture around. He had emailed me. I started boasting. This world-famous bodybuilder reached out to me, Hector, Lora, in my new role as public health and patient liaison for marketing, and he's going to be a speaker, and we invited everyone to come. And if I say I didn't do my due diligence, I didn't do the research. You'll get the gist of the story in a second. So on the day, we had a whole hall full of individuals that came to hear him speak. Through the door walks in a gentleman, Ron Coleman. He was not the world-famous bodybuilder. He was about my height. Let's just say that his body was the opposite of a bodybuilder. So I thought he was an agent or something. I said, "Where's Ron Coleman?" He said, "I am Ron Coleman." I was so disappointed. I was scared. I'm going to be honest with you, I thought I lost my job. I said, "Ron Coleman, what do you do?" And he said, "Well, I go around and I speak about mental health, about my challenges." You can actually look him up. He's now a pretty famous speaker. But he came up and he said, "I want to tell people about the challenges of mental health, what we face, and how we overcome it in my story." So I brought him up with all the pictures around of the bodybuilder, Ron Coleman, up and said, trying to explain that Ron Coleman was not here, but this Ron Coleman was going to talk about mental health. He went up and he blew everyone away. His story was real. He was passionate. He talked about what he went through as a child and having to hide some of his symptoms and marriage and the problems with families and friends and with work. And at the end of it, like Ruthie's story, everyone was left with tears in their eyes and deeply moved. I was so impacted by his story, and so affected by that, and realized that God works in amazing ways. He was the right person to speak at that time and stayed with me always. So I share that with each and every one of you, that when you take the opportunity to share your story, your challenges, what you're facing, you empower others, you encourage them, and you remind them that you don't have to be perfect in this journey. And I think those were the words that were shared about MHCP, that you're not in this journey alone, that we are together. So I'll conclude with what I stated earlier. Thank you to each and every one of you for making sure that those who face these challenges, especially in cities like Passaic, where there's very little resources, where people face so very much, to let them know that they are not alone. God bless you and thank you.